Good morning, and welcome to the What Inspired Me Today podcast, a podcast created to inspire you to be the very best that you can be. My name is Stephen Matthew, and this is what inspired me today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. It is an honor and a privilege to be speaking with you today. As I mentioned previously, this past week was our final examination week for the students at the university. Naturally, it was stressful, but matters were made worse when the weather started to change on us. And so this past week, we had our second snowstorm here in Michigan. This past Wednesday evening, I was driving home, and it was my first time driving through a proper winter storm. And it was whiteout weather. So it was like blizzards going on outside. I couldn't see in front of the car for some periods of the drive. In fact, there was a couple times where the car slid and it spun out twice as well. But thankfully, everything was safe. But that made me think about a life lesson that we should all ponder at some point. It doesn't have to be all the time, but it's something that we should take into consideration as we journey through this thing called life. And what I was thinking about was not just starting off strong, but finishing strong as we progress through our own journey. So the quote that I wanted to share with you is from a man named Calvin Coolidge. He says this: "Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." You see, what I was thinking about through my whole commute. Now, mind you, on a normal, beautiful day, the commute will take around 50 to 55 minutes, but during that Wednesday evening, it took around 2 hours. What I was thinking about wasn't how quickly will I get home. What I was thinking about primarily was, dear God, let me get home in one piece, safe and sound. And that is something that we should think about, not necessarily just driving safely, would highly recommend doing that, but about making sure that we finish our journeys off strong. I don't know about you, but I find it really easy to be able to start anything when I am fresh, when I'm ready, when I have lots of enthusiasm. It is really easy for me to start things off, and I can start them off strong. What's more difficult, though, is to continue on persisting when times get tough, when the time that I had allocated for is longer than I had expected, and so then it requires more work. The grind, the minutia of just life, right? But what helps us to continue on and what helps us to succeed in our goals is when we persist, when we are determined, and when we carry on doing the task ahead of us. And so, how do we persist? How do we continue on? How do we ultimately finish strong? The first thing I would like to suggest is that we start making small but consistent degrees of progress. This is something I've repeated time and time again, but it doesn't have to be a sprint. It can be a long-distance, slow walk through life. All of us have probably heard of the Aesop fable about the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. It doesn't matter if you need to crawl. It doesn't matter if you need to take things slowly. But as you make small but consistent degrees of progress, you will find yourself actually moving further and further along in your desired goal or destination. As you are doing that, number 2, maintain high standards for yourself and shoot for excellence. That is something that I got taught growing up throughout life. I don't need to be the best, and it's okay if I'm not the best. There's always going to be someone better. But what I can aim for is to be my best. And anything less than my best will lead to disappointment for myself. As long as I can end my day knowing that I've tried my hardest, then I know it was a day well spent. But as we're progressing through, and especially as we get through the grind and the minutiae of life, stay committed to your goal no matter what. Commitment is an important lesson and an important thing to internalize and to work on. There's nothing we can do to fast track commitment. Commitment and persistence and determination can only happen by actually doing those things and actually staying committed to it. And as we stay committed to the goal, we will then successfully start working past obstacles because we're taking things slowly, we are maintaining high standards for ourselves, and then we're being committed despite the obstacles in our way. And then ultimately, as we are going through that, remain adaptable when you're dealing with challenges. When they come, face them head on. And so those 4 things there, making small but consistent degrees of progress, maintaining high standards of excellence for yourself, staying committed no matter what comes your way, but then being adaptable to be able to change and then face your challenges head on, are ways that we can remain persistent, we remain determined, and then ultimately finish off strong. To finish off with, I wanted to share with you a couple of points that my students actually wrote down. One of my final assignments for the year is to do a self-reflection. This is something that I would highly recommend everyone does. Taking a moment, no matter how long it is, it doesn't need to be full on, but taking a moment for yourself to reflect on your past or reflect on a certain period of time. In my case, I ask my students to reflect on this past semester and their goals that they set and how they feel that they progressed. Here's what a couple of them said. Growing through adversity is an amazing way to grow as a person. That deals so well with what we were speaking about last week. It is something that actually helps us to grow. The second one says this. Most importantly, I will continue to give myself grace when times get hard. Because you can't break down something you're trying to maintain and build. Let me repeat that one again. Most importantly, I will continue to give myself grace when times get hard. Because you can't break down something you're trying to maintain and build. That hit me like a truck, and what a fantastic way to phrase that. When we go through adversity, when we go through tough times, when we're going through a journey which we can't see in front of us, it's okay to go slowly. What is most important is not to give up. What is most important is not to just stop where we are. Otherwise, we might be stuck in the middle of nowhere and there's a snowstorm going on around us and we don't know what to do. We're not going anywhere. We're not making any progress. But you can't break down something that you're trying to maintain and build, because then you'd have to start all over again. So don't give up. Don't worry. Take things slow and continue to be determined and persist. Finish strong. With that said, have a great week.